Well, hey, everybody. You're right, Jeff. Let me get myself centered in this little circle here. Okay. Hey, Jeff, you're absolutely right. It's Logik Sunday. Hello, David. Jeff, how are my levels, brother? Randy McEntee is in the house, ladies and gentlemen. I love watching the names like populate in the comment screen here in Ecamm. Yo, 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 Randy. What's up, EJ? It is a bright and beautiful day here in the Hudson Valley. A great week and a great weekend. You know, we wrapped up like this major project I've been working on for 6 weeks, and I can't wait to do like a Logik Live and do a shop breakdown on it, because it was like, it's one of those things where like at the beginning you don't know how you're going to do it, and by the end you feel like you've conquered everything, like it was triumphant. We went back to the office for the first time officially since March of 2020. I don't know if you guys heard about that. So that was kind of awesome, I have to say. What else? Oh, guess who's getting readers? Because you're watching like the aging process happen in real time with Andy here on Logik Live every Sunday, or every other Sunday if something, if work gets out of hand. This is going to be a great show today. Our friend Josh Laurence is coming on. We're going to talk about publishing. Absolutely, it's like a deep dive, geek out, flame artist fest. I absolutely love it. David Kreitz, how are you, my friend? Gennady is here. Oh, thank you very much. All right, brothers and sisters, here we go. Randy, this is for you, buddy. Deep breath. The only thing better than timing that transition perfectly is seeing Ralphie Skaggs come on in the chat and say hello right before we start. Hey, everybody, my name is Andy. Welcome to Logik Live. This is episode 78 of Logik Live. We're going to talk publishing with our friend Josh Laurence in just a minute, but let's get this party started by thanking our friends at Synesys.io for sponsoring Logik Live. Solutions development, integration, and support. These guys have been my flame artists. Whew, still waking up, gang. These guys have been my they've been my reseller for the last 15 years, and I could not do what I do professionally without them. And we want to thank them for always being such wonderful supporters to the Flame community, supporting Flame artists since 1997. Thank you, Synesys. And also thank you to AJA, Steve Losey. Mad love to Steve Losey. AJA and Flame have been together since 2006, and we thank them for sponsoring Logik Live. Hey, do you need tech support? Well, give Jack Horrocks a call by shooting him an email at jack@flametech.com.au. For all your needs, Flame, networking, storage, custom builds. If it's not working or if you want it to work better, give Jack a holler. Thank you so much, Jack. And if you're in the market for some plugins from Boris FX, be sure to use the Logik.tv discount code. Save 15% on any Boris FX product, standalone or subscription, when you use the code Logik-15 at checkout. I don't know if anybody was aware, but there was an Apple event on Tuesday, and our friends from Boris were featured in one of their segments about the new machine, including Larissa Supnick, who's the lead programmer over there. She was on Logik Live last year, so congratulations to them. And hey, it wouldn't be a Sunday if I didn't call out the Logik merch store. I am sporting right now, maybe I should just do this. I am sporting right now a fashionable, and might I add, quite warm and comfortable Logik.tv zip-up hoodie, which are finally back in stock. But if you would like to look your best while you do your best, head on over to the Logik merch store. We got everything. Oh, there it is, that zip-up hoodie. I can verify it looks great. We also have got hats in black and white. With the warm weather coming, you might want to get yourself a nice Logik baseball hat. And we also want to thank all of our patrons at Patreon. There's the roll call. We have 116 patrons. Thank you, patrons. We could not do what we do here without your support. If you'd like to become a patron for as little as $5 a month, get yourself some merch, some discounts, and access to exclusive content like the Q&A that we do after Logik Live. Head on over to patreon.com/LogikTV. This is going to be a great example today's of the value of those Q&As, because publishing is one of those things with like a million edge cases and use cases, because everyone has a different workflow, and Josh is going to be on hand to kind of answer all of the gotchas and really dive deep and get granular on any questions you might have. So patreon.com/LogikTV. Let me give you an update on the forum. I know this is Randy's favorite part of the show. Forum stats for 2022, we're up to 1,065 users. That's up 23 from 2 weeks ago. 348,000 page views, including 10,000 page views on 3/8, which I believe was the day of that Apple event. So I want to thank our friends in Cupertino for, it's a rising tide, lifts all boats, right? 3.3 thousand posts so far this year. And we're up to 296 users on Discord. That's 16 just in the last 2 weeks. Just want to give a shout out to the Logik Discord and the Logik Discord community. It's a great place to have a wonderful conversation with your fellow flame artists. So just head on over to logic.tv, forum.logic.tv, click on the Discord link, and join in the conversation. A couple weeks ago, we released new Logik Academy classes for 2022. I finally got my act together and did one called Beauty Techniques in Flame, where I covered topics like blemish removal, cleaning up blotchy areas of the skin, cleaning up red eyes and eye bags. I could use a little bit of that today myself. Also working on texture and color balancing, and all of that kind of under the umbrella of working efficiently. And our friend Randy McEntee released 2 more Logik Academy courses, one on the machine learning time warp, and the other one setting up PyBox so you can use Flame together with Nuke. All of that is available for free at logic.tv. These are our offerings. They join, the new ones join Connected Conform and the image node from our friend Jeff Kyle, and Intro to NDI and 8-Minute Aces, also from Randy McEntee. And we want to thank our friends at Autodesk for sponsoring Logik Academy. Speaking of Autodesk, I want to just remind everybody of the latest from the Flame Learning channel and our dear friend Grant K. Grant has 2 streams of content happening right now on the Learning channel. One is a fundamentals course for new flame artists, and the latest module of that, module 8, is all about timeline effects. And then he has his flame capsules, which are little like 30-second chunks on features and tool sets. And the most recent one was about changing the layout of scopes when you're working in the image node. So check all that out on the Flame Learning channel on YouTube. Thank you very much, Grant K. Oh, and I see our friend Valentine is here. Oh, thank goodness. It's so good to see your face or see your voice or hear your voice. Just to see you, Valentine. Oh, that's wonderful. We love you, man, and we're thinking about you every day. All right, let's get this party started. Oh, there I am. No, that compensated for the great dissolve at the beginning of the spot. So let's talk publishing, friends. By default, Flame embraces a very managed workflow. Your project starts off clean and light, but as you work, renders and cached media live on your frame store, and batch setups live inside iterations within batch groups. It's a great system. It's fast, it's organized, it's reliable, but those things do come at a bit of a cost, right? Your frame store is usually on very expensive storage, either your internal NVMe or an attached RAID, and as your project grows, your archives grow with it because Flame archives everything as uncompressed media, and for a very good reason. If you're working with other artists, keeping track of changes in versions can be a cumbersome manual process requiring you to wire things from flame to flame and manually update versions in your timeline. Well, what if I were to tell you that there was a different way to manage your project? Instead of managing your project on your Flame's frame store, you can publish, air quotes, publish all of your media and batch setups out to a file system like your local hard drive or NAS or SAN, and then only deal with metadata in Flame. It requires a bit of setup, but you get the benefits of everything being accessible to everyone in versions of renders that magically appear in your conform, regardless of who worked on them or what app was used to make them. Batch setups that travel with their renders and archives that are measured in megabytes instead of gigabytes. There's an epic thread on publishing on the forum right now about this with really great step-by-step instructions from Chris Noellert. But my guest today is Josh Laurence, who's a flame artist and the guy who's been my personal publishing guru for years. He showed off publishing at a New York user group meeting a few years ago and just wowed everybody with what publishing was and what was capable, what you could do with a published workflow. So let me finish mumbling and bring Josh on. Hey, Josh, how's it going, man?
Hey, how's
Welcome
it going?
to Logik
Happy
Live.
Sunday.
Happy
Logik
Sunday.
Yeah.
Here we are. Oh, wait a minute. Yes, absolutely. I got to make this my alarm, my wake up alarm music. Well, thanks for coming on, man. I do remember that New York user group meeting where you showed off publishing, and I remember sitting there and going like with any new workflow you're presented, when you see something different, you're like, well, this is clearly not for me because my way is perfect, right? Like, why would I ever need this? And I watched it, and then just like, boom, it was like seeing in color for the first time. And I remember like coming to your office, I wanted to learn everything about this, all the ins and outs, all the gotchas, and figure out how I could implement this into my world. So what was your like first exposure to publishing? How did you get into this?
we had it's basically born out of my my inability to really direct people properly. I mean, I I was I was leading flame projects, and it was exceptionally cumbersome to have to wire stuff back and forth between different frame stores, and having to tell people manually or over the phone or through an email, where stuff was and what, where you could find something, and then wait for stuff to move back and forth between. And it became like really inefficient and difficult. And the last thing I wanted was people to be sitting around feeling frustrated, waiting for me to help organize a project. So I looked into publishing. I was working with JF up in Montreal, and he helped me set up the technical side of it. But there was this workflow that was already built into Flame, and it was as we discovered more and more about it, as we started using it, it became really, really powerful, and not only changed how organized we were, but it kind of changed the behavior of how we would approach a project, and how our expectations of how things would flow in the office. Yeah, but anyway, so let me show you. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to start by actually publishing a sequence that I put together with some footage from NASA, because it's mostly royalty free and paid by the taxpayers. But basically, I have a 5-shot sequence here. This is footage from Apollo 13, Apollo 14, Apollo 16, 12, and Apollo 13 here. So we've got these 5 shots, right? And the workflow goes that you would put your all your shots from your EDL, you'd conform them, right? And then you'd check it, make sure that it all does what it's supposed to do, right? And real quick, I'll just run through, and then I'll circle back so that at least you can see, rename the shots. And then we will take out we'll take out the reference files, and leaving everything in here, the text, the burn-in letterbox, time warps, all that sort of stuff. I'll just take this and go to the publish folder and drop it in here. And for the project, I have a preset, and we'll just export. And so every little piece of what I did, I will come back to and explain how it was all set up, and what to do with the naming, the tokens, where to save stuff, and what all this dialog box means, because this media export dialog box is kind of it's a little intimidating, to say the least, especially like as you progress through the tabs. The last one becomes very confusing, but when we go through it afterwards, hopefully you'll have an understanding that it's actually fine. There's nothing really that mystical about it. And then we get this, which is a timeline with 2 different layers, 2 different versions. The first version on the bottom looks exactly like the one on top. However, these are called segment clips. And what they are is actually the metadata from the original source is right here, the naming, all that sort of stuff. The ones on top are called open clips. So segment clips on the bottom, open clips on the top, and you'll see the name of the clip is the shot name that we gave it. And in these brackets here, I don't know if you can see it clearly through YouTube, but in the brackets is the actual shot name as well. So you can see PD, shot 10, etc. So what that looks like is, let's say with shot 4, shot 40, let's go to batch, and I'll pop that in. And what you get when you publish is this segment clip, which is a read file. You get a resize. The resize has to do with whatever timeline you were looking at that you published from. So that happens to be the same size as the source, but that often is not the case, especially if you're publishing from client footage. The pre-render, I don't use this because I don't cache the stuff. It's actually on the server. And then a write file. The write file has all your metadata in here. And the one thing that we've learned over time is the write file is not all what it seems to be. And our instructions to everybody that came to work with us was don't touch it.
Yeah.
Basically,
I wish you could
it's
put a lock on it, at
yeah,
sometimes.
it's really and it's not like you can copy and paste it and move it around and write different things with it. Once you start divorcing it from its batch group, things stop working.
Hmm.
So that is one of the big gotchas with the publishing workflow is the write file is tied to this batch group right here. So very important. So I put together a quick comp to do to the footage here. And I used Cristobal's green screen to make a little mat here. And let's just render. And so, whatever work you're going to do, oh my goodness, it's a little distorted. Okay.
But what isn't? You know?
That looks like a lem. So this is
Hey.
the lem footage here as it's coming back to the command module, circulating the moon. And they're about to dock and transfer the astronauts back and take them home. And what we did here was we just deformed it a little bit as it approaches and then graded the background and graded the foreground, put the two together, and you have a write file. Okay, so back to the timeline. What we get here is if you go to either the format options or the pre-processing timeline effects, you'll get this clip versions dialog, and you'll see there's
Whoa.
version 1. I feel like I need a hat with that.
Would you like
Big
one in
top.
black or white? I have them both here. All right.
So that's the magic. What happens is you get this, you get to see version 1. Okay, there are a couple really amazing things about this, and I'm sure one of them is that you can actually take all this and share it with others. So
Well, Josh, just to recap for anybody at home who has never seen the published workflow before. So you took your base conform and you did that the way you always conform in Flame, with your EDL, your XML, whatever. And you then went and published that media out to your SAN or your file system or hard drive or whatever. And the publishing process, right, organizes all that media into folders, creates metadata for that stuff, so that when it comes back into Flame on that second version track there, it's linked. It's linked not only to the media on the storage, but it's also linked to the write file nodes in the batch group. So as long as you maintain all that stuff, anything you render using that write file node will render out as an image sequence to your drive, and then will appear as a version, as an option right there in the timeline. And you didn't have to do anything. And it wouldn't matter who worked on that on whatever Flame anywhere, as long as they respected the metadata. If there's a new render, you have access to it. You don't have to wire it or copy it or ask anybody where's the latest thing or anything like that, right?
Yep, and it's also that this metadata, this track here, these are called open clips, and the open clips are like 2 kilobyte XML files, and they can really live anywhere. They can live on a NAS that doesn't have to be fast storage like what you've got with your footage, but as long as the footage is on the fast storage that everybody pretty much has with their Flames, you get the playback speeds because this is really linking to the footage. But what you've got here is this sort of controlling file that says you can show me version 1 or version 2. Which one am I linking to? So I'm going to dive into what those folders are like.
Yeah, let's see how the
What
sausage is made. Absolutely.
yeah.
We've
So I
reached that
wanted
point
to
here, right? Like after the
talk.
magical reveal, it's now we're going to dive into how this all works.
Yeah, and it's actually once there will be an aha moment for you when you see this, like, oh, I get it. This is where it all is, and this is what you're doing. But it's not really that difficult, and the presets are kind of the thing that's really going to help you standardize the workflow. So some of the advantages are is that you don't have to look for media. What's great about this is that all the media for the batch is all included, and all the linkages are all included when you do your publish. You don't have to reconform. So when you get another shot here, you don't have to, once the shot is rendered out of batch, regardless of what flame it's on, whether it's yours or a teammate's or somebody else's, then you get, it's already in your timeline. You don't have to touch it. So the other thing is you get a deliberate choice of where to save your media, so that you as like if you're a lead, you can control it, or as like an engineer, you actually get to point stuff to where you can maximize your investment in hardware. And because it's all template based, it's super organized. And we'll take a look at that. So here you have this published timeline. You'll see it says Moon 1 publish and Moon 1. What I do for my workflow is I'll duplicate the first, my original, and I'll version up, and I'll take the publish and I'll copy just the open clips, and I'll close it and I'll leave it closed. And so I'll add a track and paste it. And this actually gives me the ability, there is a key command, which I've, in my keyboard shortcuts, I set it to Command Shift up and down, where I can, where I can manually, where I can use the keyboard to rock back and forth, but you can also set your, you can set your focus to be on your previous, on the original. And when I do long form stuff, I'll rename the track, and I'll call this DPX from lab or from source. And this will be my first publish, right? And then I can make another track. I organize actually my long form jobs this way. The first one will be approved to send to edit. So if I have a shot and I'm like, okay, this is right, I'll take that and I'll organize it that way. And then this will get a little meta, but you can actually republish parts of your timeline as review files for editorial. And I'll show you how to do that in a little bit. Okay, so if you're some of the, I wanted to talk about like the different, who's going to use the workflow. So I've been at a company, we developed this starting in late 2015. We started working with this process and we developed our workflow around it back then. And as a company and team, we had shared storage. We had a SAN. So if you're a company that has a SAN and you have multiple flames on the SAN, this is an amazing way to get really, really good organization to your project, and to be able to offload some work, and to be able to work with like an assist who can do shots while you're in session. There's all sorts of great things you can do. If you've got playback on the SAN, you don't necessarily have to cache it. And I should give a big shout out to Chris Nollert. His how-to on the forum is excellent, but he uses flames as islands, and he uses his stone as a cache, which is a great way to work because he gets the playback, but he has the advantage of using NIM to organize his projects for him. And this is sort of, along the same vein. So that's one of the advantage. You can distribute the shots. So if you've got a team, you can go here and you can add shared libraries. So we'll call this Andy, right? So Andy gets a shared library.
Oh, thanks, man.
Oh, there's another one that we already put it here. But so
it's almost like we ran through this.
Whoops. Okay, so here's what we do. Delete that library. Okay, so let's say this is fresh shared library. What I'll do on our jobs is I'll take this raw batch group and I'll give it to the unassigned, and all the batch groups will be there, and they'll be available to everybody on the team. Anybody in the project in their own workspace can see these raw batch groups. So Andy's like, okay, this is great. How about I take shot 4 and shot 2? Actually, I take shot 4 and shot 3, and he'll put them in his to do, and they disappear from the available shots for another artist. So if we have another artist, let's say Randy's here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not working with Randy. I have standards, you know.
Randy, this is the hardest shot ever, 50. So Randy will
Oh,
take
I would
50.
totally give that to Randy. Yeah, absolutely, in a heartbeat.
Okay, so we
He's
give
your
that
man.
shot.
Yeah.
And now Randy's got shot 50. And now let's add one more artist here. Let's do create a shared library and Hard Dave's. Actually, Valentine, we're going to give you some work, and hopefully, so keep you busy, keep your mind off of things. So there you go. Everything from the job is now no longer in the unassigned, and everybody is working on these shots. And as everybody finishes, they populate into the timeline of the lead artist. So everybody's got stuff to do. And that's one way that we solved like hey, I don't have anything to do. I was like, well, check the unassigned. There's work in there. Let's bang out a shot, pick one. And I don't actually assign shots to anybody. They basically self-assign. They want to do something, they're probably going to do a better job in a shot that they want to do. So it's unless it's every shot is really a pain in the neck, then that's another story.
It's a really great workflow. It's one of those things where you typically think about needing like something like Shotgun or NIM or PF Track or something, or a Google Sheet or something to keep track of it. And here is a solution to do it all right within Flame. And for anyone at home who's wondering, like, yeah, but how do you keep track of the iterations and everything if everything's just in a million shared life? Just hold on, Josh is about to get to that, and it's going to blow your mind.
Yes. Okay. So that's actually, I'm going to get to that after I talk about the benefits to the individual. So, at the beginning of COVID, I left the company and I was working freelance, and I was still publishing. And I found that publishing is an amazing way just to keep your job organized yourself. Because if you don't have the shared libraries and you have all your batch groups, what you can do is you can just start banging out the work, right? So shot 40 is good. And I put that back in. Actually, well, here's what I'll do with my workflow. I'll take the name of the shot itself and I'll call this desktop shot 40, right? And I'll give it a color, right? I like that color. And I'll just drop it in my desktops. So, and the reason I do this is this goes to the Andy's other Logic Live that he wants to do about why people work the way that they do. This is why I work this way, is because this save button here is it's save the desktop. That's kind of the whole thing about Flame, is that it's built around making sure that this desktop makes it into a library. And that's why I'll do one shot per desktop, and I'll just do the desktop as the name. So if I've got shot 50, I can just, take it shot 50, delete these two guys, and let's add a deform, and we'll crumple it because the moon looks awesome that way, and it just renders. And that when you render, it's actually, we'll look at where it goes in a second, but it's saving the frames to the right place. And as it's saving the frames to the right place, before it starts, it actually saves the batch group as its own batch file. And then it saves, when it's done, it overwrites the open clip with the information about where the batch group is and where the data is that was used to create it. So here's our render, right? So there's that. And that's ready to send to editorial. Okay, now I've got 2 shots for editorial. Right? So this stuff just populates in here. And if I want to compare it, I can either move up or down a layer, or I can just rock back and forth with my key command. I kind of like it better that way. It's the psychedelic moon.
I was going to say, it reminds me of
okay,
summer in college.
Then I'll just save that. That's now shot 50. Okay, so I'm going to, we'll walk through how to do it again real quick. This stuff, I'm going to go back to my prep and grab my new library, and I'll just call this sequences 2. Okay, so this is, here's what we do. Here, I put it in there. Let's go there. Nope, that goes there. Sorry. Boom. Okay, and I'll clear the desktop. What is it that we're actually doing? So when you look at these things, the most important thing about publishing, and here's where we kind of get into the nitty gritty of it. The most important thing about publishing is that each of these files has to be unique. So the way you do that is you rename the shot. Most importantly, don't use the rename or confuse this process with rename. It's rename shot. And I've got this, the project nickname shot segment. That's a preset that I have in my preferences timeline. So I've got my default shot name here on the timeline tab in preferences. I use the project nickname and the shot name. And the reason I use the project nickname is because it's unique to that project. And if you're doing a bunch of different projects, they're all going to have shot 10, 20, 30, 40, etc. The only way to identify those shots outside of, in the context of the job itself, is give it the project nickname. And for the project nicknames that we use, we just use the job number is our project nickname. So this job I created, I set it up as publishing demo. And you see the nickname goes in here when you create a new project, pub demo. The nickname is PD. And this is pretty important for the workflow, at least in my opinion, is to make sure that you have that project nickname, because it's a great way to keep all that stuff organized. So we'll do that again. We'll select the entire row, rename shot, project nickname, you see PD. And then here's where some of the tokens get interesting. So segment is, there's actually a segment number assigned to every single segment in your conform. So if you, if we turn this on, if you look in the conform
number in the old days, yeah.
The segment is, this is the number for every track. Okay. And we'll get to multi-track timelines in a little bit, but you'll see this is why I take out the reference file. Now every segment is unique on your timeline, segment 1 through 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So then let's go back to the timeline and we will rename the shot. Get the segment. And you'll see it comes up with 4 digits right here. So what I do is I put in a hashtag, and the hashtag tells Flame how many digits of that segment or of that token you actually want to use. So we're just using 2. And then I prepend it with shot. So it's SH01. And then I give it an extra 0 because I want to make sure that everything, I usually don't have more than 99 shots, but if I've got a job with more than 100 shots in it, I'll make this 3 hashes and I'll take out the 0 at the end. But that's on a custom. And then I'll add a 0. And the reason we add zeros, for those of you that don't work with editors that, those of you that work with editors that change their mind, they can, if they've got shot 10 and they need to put a shot in between shot 10 and shot 20, they have a choice. They could make it 12, make it 14, 15, whatever it is, but they have 9 other shots that they can put in between. So that's why it's shot 10, 20, etc.
If you're working with an editor, by the way, that requires like more than 10 new shots in between 2 shots, then I think you're dealing with a problem.
Yeah, that's a client issue. That's
it's a bigger problem to unpack than even publishing will solve.
So this dynamic button is actually something I use all the time when I'm doing shot names. And it's mostly when I'm doing long form. And I'll show you why in a second, because what you get here is you get we just renamed the shots, right? And you'll see in the shot name here, it's in the brackets, PD shot 10, PD shot 20, right? And then if you want to add, if you have a client that's long form and that's asking you to put in a burn in the letterbox, this is what we do. We have, you can use your burn-in presets. And what that does is it adds a burn-in to all this, but you can see there's a burn-in token for shot name. So the shot name changes. You'll see it's shot 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, etc. So all your shots, you can see what shot names they are and what the time code was. And that becomes really helpful when you're referring to stuff. It's also really good for commercial clients when they want to call out specific frames, if you're not working with Frame.io on a frame basis. So that's this. Okay, so we got what we did is the first thing we did was make sure to rename the shots, use the shot renamer, and then I'm going to make a new folder and we'll call this publish 2, right? And this isn't normal. I have a preset set of folders for every job, but for publish 2, we'll put this thing in again. Actually, I'm going to delete all this stuff from previous desktops. And in publish 2, I'm just going to you can drag whatever sequence you've got into here, or you can use your Control E, Meta E, whatever it is that you're doing. And it brings up the sequence publish dialog box. Okay. And then let's dive into the 3 different tabs that you're going to get. So the publishing works with frames only. And part of that post from Chris at the end, everybody's talking about why doesn't it work with why doesn't it make ProRes files? And part of that is because the write file that's created doesn't actually make QuickTimes. It only makes frame sequences. So that's why publishing only really works with frame sequences. So the first thing we do is we look at the sequence options. You get media only. You can make the AAF, XML, all that stuff, but for the most part, in this workflow, you really just need the media only. You export the video, not the audio, although you can publish audio as well. You have a choice here, file sequence and movie. For publishing where I want the versions in the timeline, I use the file sequence. If I'm exporting a group of shots, I'll use the movie, and I have created presets for that. If I'm going to send stuff to outsourcing for Roto, or if I'm going to send a bunch of shots to an editor as individual shots with burn-in, that will be a movie. But in this case, we're using file sequence. Now, here's your choice here is use original media or with effects. The effects are the timeline effects. So if you've got a resize, if you've got like a 6K file in a high def timeline, it's going to make a high def published file. Or if you've got color corrects or time warps, this is when you do that. If you want to bake a time warp, use the media with effects. Try to keep it in the same color space, in the same size, so that there's no resizing on your timeline, but just add your time warp, make sure it is what you want to work with, and then bake it. That's how this works with the effects. For the most part, I don't. I use the original media, and that's the source. So if your source is a QuickTime file that's at 360 by 240, it'll make 360 by 240 frame sequences of your QuickTime file in your published shot. If it's a 6K red file, it'll make 6K DPXs at whatever color space you choose. I use keep all tracks, but I manage all my tracks into one layer. I include handles. For the most part, it's 10 frames, 8 frames, whatever the client wants. And then we're ready to move on to the video options. The video options are where you get the file format. So your video format is DPX. You can 99% of the times you're going to generate media. The link media thing requires storage setup, linking to be enabled, and for whatever your source to be is going to be the same format as whatever you're making. Otherwise, it won't work. So 99 times out of 100, you're going to be generating media. For DPX, I use uncompressed, linear, unspecified video, because I don't want to actually touch the color from whatever it is that I'm making. I'll do all my color moves as tagging or as color management on the source in the timeline. And then you get your pattern. And the pattern, this is actually where your renders are going to go. So name here, the name token is the name of the sequence, Apollo and the Moon, Apollo and the Moon, name. Then I add a directory for versions, because the data itself, what the frames, they're actually all versions. When you first publish your sequence, you're making version 0. Then I'll do the version name, right? And that'll be version 0 up here. Then the shot name and the version name. So the shot will make DPXs that are named the shot, and then the version name is on the end in a folder called version 0, in a folder of the shot name in the versions. Okay. And then if you need, this is one thing that we do come up with. We do a lot of beauty work, and the clients shoot 8K, and it's for a delivery to
TikTok.
Twitter. Yeah. And it's really like, we don't know why you shot this way. They're like, well, it's the best. So great, it's the best. We'll change the resolution of what we're working on, but not the color space. We'll just sample it down. If we'll go to UHD if they want a 4K master. But for the most part, if you're working with a DI and they've given you a turnover, resolution is the same as clip, because they want it back exactly as they gave it to you. So that's that. Now here's where all the metadata interesting things happen. At least this is the part that I think is kind of cool. The first thing you do is you work your way down in this dialog box in the clip options. You create the open clip. And creating the open clip, there are 2 different kinds of open clips. One is the segment clip, and you can't live without, Autodesk doesn't let you live without the segment clip. You absolutely have to create it. And here's a massive gotcha. And this is where everybody the first time starts to run into trouble, is because more often than not, you'll have clips in your timeline that come from the same source, and they'll have the same name. So if your segment is called Apollo rover, and you decide to take another shot from that same clip called Apollo rover, it can't write over itself, or it stops. So it won't publish if the segment clips are if it's going to overwrite one. So what I do is I'll take the name, right? So this goes into your folder for this sequence, metadata. So I've organized things by either versions or metadata. And then within metadata, I'll make a segment clips folder. That's right here. Use the shot name, right? That's the name we assigned it. And then the segment name, so that the segment name is embedded inside the shot name. And that always guarantees that it's a unique name.
Right, because each segment has a unique shot number.
I
remember this bit me early on in my publishing thing too, and I didn't understand the error. And I think I called you, but this is it's an important first step that as part of this process and the metadata creation and the whole publishing workflow, a segment clip must be created, and if you're using
and it must be in a unique place. So you can have shot 10 with segment, Apollo 13 views the moon. Shot 20 can also be Apollo 13 views the moon, but it'll be a different clip. And as long as you get those two different clips, it comes back and it's fine.
Yeah, I had the same shot used like on either side of it was like a close up, and then it was a cutaway, and then it was back to the close up again, and that's what burned me because both of those close ups were the same source name, A06C004 or whatever.
Right, and that would absolutely do it. That would stop the process, and then you're like, now what do I do? Give up.
Call Josh.
So, so then the next thing is the clip versions. So the clip versions, you start at version 0, pad 2, and if you like, this is where you can add however many zeros you want in your version name. I try not to have more than 99 versions of any render, so I keep it at 2. Sometimes I'll get to 10, so that's why I keep 2 here. I appended this in mine, so it's V00, but you don't have to. You can put whatever you want. You can put D, S, whatever works for you as far as the version. The problem with this is that you cannot change this token. You can't add. What we wanted to do initially was append this version with user initials, right? But it won't let you. So you can't do it, and you can only add versions in there. It'll just come up as text that says initials. So the next one is create shot setup. And this is where you make the batches, where you save the batches. So this is name, again, metadata. I have a separate folder called batches, and then I make a separate folder for each shot name. And then in each shot name, I'll have a shot name and a version name. So the batches get version 0 batch, version 1 batch, version 2 batch, etc. This is super, super important because what it does is it ties together your render with the exact batch that was used to create it. And that's really important down the road if you have a job and it comes back to you and they go on hiatus because everybody came down with COVID. They come back in 6 months and they have reshoots, and now
too soon, Josh. Too soon.
And you've got like a new crew working on it, and you've got to pick up where you left off. The batches themselves, you're like, I don't know what was done in this. And here's where I'm going to bash iterations a little bit. If you've iterated and somebody's touched the iteration, which you absolutely can do, then you've lost the work. You don't know, there's no batch group that's tied to that render. This obviates that. You have the batch, which is created, which is saved right before it renders, and then it renders. So that if you make an adjustment and hit and re-render, it saves a new batch for exactly that render and re-renders it. And that's super, super powerful and very helpful. And I'll show you what that does when you bring it back into batch, into a batch schematic. The output pattern is the next one. This is the output clip itself. And this is what gets conformed back in your timeline with all the versions. So that's the name, metadata, because it's also metadata. I put it in a folder called output clips, and you just need really the shot name. And for all this metadata, the batch, the segment clip, the output clips, this can go anywhere. This can go on a NAS. This can go on a USB stick. This can go right next to your job in the job folder, on your fast storage, slow storage, whatever. These are text files. All this is making is little teeny tiny XML files that you can move almost anywhere, as long as they stay in the same place once you make them. The last one is the output pattern, and this matches the video options right here. So this is where things go for the versions. The reason I match it is because I put all the versions in one place. Version 0 is your video options. Every subsequent version goes here, right? So that's name, right? Your sequence name, your versions, your shot name, the version name, a folder for that, and then the shot name. And that goes right there. And then I create a batch inside a flame, and I put those. You can actually direct Flame where to put it inside of your project. So I use libraries, and I make a library called desktops, and in the desktops, I'll make a library. I'll make a folder, a subfolder for the name of the sequence, and then I'll make another subfolder, raw batch groups, because once you start making desktops, they're not raw anymore. having and saving the raw batch groups inside of Flame is really, really helpful. What you wind up by doing is, if something happens to that write file node that we talked about earlier, and it gets screwed up or moved or adjusted in a way that breaks the linkages, you have your backup raw batch group, and you can just drop it back in, open a batch group with it. And here's the trick. You copy the work from whatever you want to save from the busted batch group, and you copy it into the fresh batch group. You don't copy the fresh batch group into the busted batch group. You do it the other way. This becomes your new Bible. All the work pops in, and then you just keep going. And then from here, we export. And let me make sure that I've got my thing right here, and I'll go to my job folder in the publishing demo, and it's going to go in publish to. Okay, so we'll go back and forth. I'll hit export, and we start making frames. And what's happening here is it created the name. I've got my versions, which is the first thing. It makes the shot 60 version 0, and we're making all the things. Okay, now it's ready for shot 50, and then shot 40. You can see it's populating with all the versions. Version 0 of everything is going into this folder here. The metadata. So the batches are here. This is the batch for shot 40, shot 50, shot 60. The output clips, this is just the output clips. And the segment clips. We have to make it for shot 30. The segment clip gets the original name. So that's Apollo 16, 14, 12, 13, and 14 again. So that's it. And it looks like it just finished.
David Kreitz, just wait. You're going to see it's going to get even better. I just want to call out here that, Josh, what Josh is showing you here is how he modified the sequence publish like templates that come with Flame to suit his unique workflow, and also like his set of circumstances. And also, Josh has also explained, some of the things he's changed because to get around gotchas or to make sure you don't overwrite something that you need. But to get into publishing, all you really need to do just to try it is to just go into the export menu, select sequence publish, and then under Autodesk there's a shot publish like folder in the pop-up that has a template of all this stuff pre-populated. You could press go and see what you got, and then kind of modify as needed.
So we also, it's absolutely, you don't need this template in order to make it work. So in my let's see, admin workflow, I also have this is a template that I use at the office because we work with Nuke. We have things built out where the shot names themselves are the workflow that I like, or that I used to use, is everything is all basically in one folder based on the type of data that it is. But a lot of people work where the shot names are in their own directories, and NIM does this too. NIM actually NIM wants all the shots to live in its own scene and episode, and it has a bunch of stuff. Anyway, so what we wind up by doing is we publish the versions into the version folder, right? And then we publish the metadata into the published metadata folder under 2D. So that's the batches, the open clips, the segment clips. They just go over here. But then, when we're working with 3D camera distortions, all that type of stuff, it all comes in. It gets handled normally like any other, Nuke-based workflow. But Flame can then sit on top of that with these versions. So that's that. We actually don't have the scripting working where it's overwriting the open clips just yet, but that's how it does it. Okay, so we've now got our publish. The timeline, and let's see the thing. Okay, go back to standby, Andy.
No problem.
Okay, so we did that, and the dialogue options 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so that's kind of it on the publish. That's how you get to the sequence where that's how you get to being able to have all this stuff there. So
Mm-hmm.
the data lives outside of. Let's go back to my stone and jobs publishing demo. You'll see it's all there. Okay, so there's one major thing that I do want to show you, and that's so if we go here to let's say I go to the previous one that we did, and I've got I think I threw away the raw batch groups from that one.
It's a live
But
show,
if I,
man.
yeah, of course. So if I go in here, I get this open clip, right? So this is the open clip that we used to create it. And I'm like, I don't know. Oh my God, where's the batch group from that first one that we did? I don't know where it is. I bring in the open clip here, and you see under the extended button here, you get your clip versions, right? And you can see your icon changing, right? So you got version 1, which is version 1. Well, whatever. Anyway, so that's version 1 and version 0. And I'm like, I actually don't know where. I don't have the raw batch group. And you know what? I think I threw away those desktops too. F. So what if I just append the current batch? Oh, this open clip knows where that batch is set up, and it creates a group that is
And there's your V0. Yeah.
that's my V0. Wait a second. So what if I wanted V1? Oh, is that V1? I want to exit the group. Ungroup that. That's also V0.
Well, let's make a like a V2 real quick. If you just want to drag back
Okay,
in
sure.
your Mars maker. This
I'll
is a
actually
really
use.
this is really an amazing feature of the published workflow that even I didn't know about
Okay,
until. Oh, here
here
we
we go.
go.
We'll
There it is.
take version 1, and we'll append that.
Boom.
And there, right there, is the batch that was used to create this. And I don't have it anywhere in here, and it's already set up to make version 2. So if I wanted to change this, let's say the whole different color, right? And render. Yep. All right. Okay. In the timeline, there's version 2,
Mm-hmm.
version
That's
1.
great. See, the last time when we were doing a published workflow and I was introducing the concept to my other artists, I would say to them, okay, if you want to load the batch setup for shot 40, what you need to do is go into the batch tab, click on
Right.
load, go to load and create, and then navigate to the file system into the batches folder and find it. I had no idea that I could just give them the open clip and say,
Yeah.
right
Here.
click on it and just
How about
append
I just
setup.
take that?
Boom. It's like that to me solved like for me and our workflow a major like not a hurdle but like one of those things where you're like, well, this is actually more work than if I were just using an iteration, and that just
Yeah.
eliminated that completely. And you don't have to keep track of it, and it doesn't matter where it was
Yeah.
created. You don't have to
Exactly.
know that that Dave was the last one to work on it on Flame 6 on
Yeah.
October 4th, like that kind of thing.
Yeah. It's all saved within the project. So I actually just took shot 40. Let's grab shot 50 and put it back in the unassigned as well. Okay. So this shot
Mm-hmm.
50 in the unassigned. Now I can go to, let's say I get a new batch group, and I can just grab shot 50 from here and append that to the group. And there it is
Yep.
with the right file.
It's great.
So it's a
And
it's
because
a
then like you have to mentally divorce yourself from like the iterations work. Like it doesn't matter what the name of this can be called new batch BO1 or whatever the default setup is. When you write it out with the or render it out with the write file node, the setup that gets saved is all linked to the metadata that was created when you first published out. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who's working on it. If they have their user preferences set up to match your user preferences, it doesn't matter. It takes all that out of the equation. It's great.
Yeah, it's and then you're kind of I want to make sure that we covered everything, but I think that that's kind of
Well, I do
that
have
that
one
gets
question for you,
yeah.
Josh, that came in. This is from our friend BJ, and his question was: isn't there a bad chance of unwanted bottleneck or an unwanted bottleneck on a server when more users are reading and writing different shots at the same time?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we did that. There are several ways around that. So we had 7 flames, and we had really fast storage, and all the flames were working for the most part, and we really had 1 or 2 leads depending on the number of jobs. So the leads would be the ones who would really require the playback. The artists could get full playback, but not everybody was requiring it at the same time. So we got around it that way. The bottleneck we found was in the metadata, and we set up this thing that I'm kind of not totally prepared to talk about, but is kind of even more magical than publishing is the headless flame. And that's what we did is we set up one machine that would be the storage. So in the project user settings, the host computer was our headless flame, and we call it host. And then everybody created workspaces for themselves on the headless flame, and so everybody was in their own workspace. And what that did was that kept if there was a crash on the lead computer or whatever machine that was hosting it, that eliminated that problem. That machine actually, I think it was 2 years before it crashed. All it was doing was just serving projects, and we
Mm-hmm.
didn't. And I'm sure that somebody from Autodesk is understanding of this. It didn't need a license. It was just running stone wire, and
I'm
because it's
afraid that's all the time we have for today, Josh.
so it was, but it wasn't. It was just running stone. It was like a flame that was off.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody that was using flame had a license, of course, because you can't do it without. But that was how we did that. You can't what Chris Nolan's post it does is actually gives you a different way of working that uses the stone that's uses dedicated stones to your flame. And I was talking to
Mm-hmm.
a friend of mine up in Montreal who's got a shop with 9 flames, and they didn't want to do the publishing workflow because they're afraid of not being able to get the speed on it. But what they do have is a NAS where they could put the metadata, and they could just cache all the files in order to work on it locally, which is another way to work, is using the cache when you import files. Or you can right click on something in your timeline. You just go to your media and you cache this media right here, and it caches it. Or you do that on your entire timeline. You cache that media, and that will get you the benefit of working on your local stone, whereas your metadata will be on your NAS or your
Mm-hmm.
shared stuff or your shared storage.
Oh, that's a good
If you're
solution. Yeah. Okay. So there's the workaround, or then maybe that answers like BJ's question. He may have a bunch of flames with fast local attached storage, but it doesn't have the server infrastructure or the bandwidth
right,
to feed
what
all
this
the
does
flames.
is it organizes the job, and we can talk about archiving at this point if you want to take
Yeah. Let's
your
show that
job.
real quick.
Yeah. So if I've got my project home, so if I go to my assets folder and I go to Flame and I go to my archives and I create a new archive, um, archives, let's go back to project home. Sorry. Assets, Flame, archives. And I want to create a new archive here, and let's call it 25 gigs. Pub demo archive. What I'll do, and Chris shows this as well, is all these will be off. the include options. I do not have the source media cache. I rarely cache machine learning stuff, the motion vector stuff, or the timeline effects renders. Don't need it. And then I'll archive the project. And you'll see it needs 13 megabytes. So,
That's amazing.
okay, great. It's 13 megabytes. And I think that's it. It's just closing the archive now.
It's great.
And that's the
Great,
whole
it's
thing.
great. Yep.
Or
If you
maybe
work that way, it's transformative. Like it's life changing because you work that way. Now, you could throw your archives on a Dropbox
yeah,
as your archive
yeah.
destination. Doesn't matter.
And I'll show you. I've got actually, so I don't know if you saw like maybe 30 minutes ago, but I've got an exact copy of my Stone, which is another, this is my NVMe and this is just an SSD. And I'm making a backup of it on the fly every 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And so your IT folks can back your stuff up. We got a flame. Hello. Your stuff gets backed up. There we go. So your stuff gets. It's actually caching. No, it's generating the TOC. So your stuff gets backed up externally. So your stones can be backed up to tape without having to use the archive utilities.
Mm-hmm.
All your stuff gets it. Everything that's entirely in the job jacket goes to your backup. If you're on the cloud, actually, we back up from our cloud storage to an S3 bucket. We just synchronize, and so everything is kind of there already,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't need the archive. What you get in the archive is the timelines, and the timelines and the batch groups are the things that are really handy to keep around, and that's what you get.
I just want to bring up a comment Mark made here, and then we'll wrap it up. He just put in here in the YouTube chat. That's great if you have a lot of versions that creates a large amount to archive outside of Flame on an LTO or something. You just need to archive those publish folders. And correct me if I'm wrong, but like yes, Mark, you do need to archive those publish folders, but it's almost always going to be a lot smaller because you're exporting like whatever, like even in this case, Josh is writing out compressed DPX files, or you may be writing out compressed EXR files. You're not saving out with the Flame archive uncompressed media.
Yeah,
Correct. So it's usually a lot
that's correct.
smaller regardless.
Yeah. So these are your batches right here. This is all your batches that were used to create, and it's all in a metadata folder that's 35 megabytes.
Mm-hmm.
Your versions is, everything that's 14 gigs for however many shots we did. Version 1 and 2. But that's for me, that's a lot cleaner way to work.
Yeah.
What else do we batch exporting? Okay, so the last thing, if you want to keep going, the last thing is okay. One more thing. So this is, let's say we get all our shots to editorial, right? So this is that I'm going to add the burn in because those have to go to editorial, and I'll add my burn in note. Right, on these two, right? PD shot 140. I'm actually going to rename these shots one more time. So I don't do this prior to publishing, but I often do this after publishing. Source version. I'll add the source version token at the end of the shot name, and then it's up here. And I think I made it dynamic. Just got to check. But that change, oh, I didn't. So let's just make sure that that's dynamic. Okay. So the source version name changes with the metadata.
It's great.
So every time that you send this out, you know that it's the one that you intended to create.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll take these two right here, and this is in Apollo 02. And my workflow is I'll drag that into the timeline as its own timeline. And I'll call this DNX or LT, right? If editorial is working in LT, which most of them don't. And I'll go to my out folder and I'll take that and sequence publish. But instead, I'll use QuickTimes.
Mm-hmm.
And in there, I get the export the video media. I'll use media with effects. Let me actually use one I know. Shared. Let's go DNX for review. Great. Okay, so use media with effects. I'll include the handles. The movie options will be the DNX HD that they're in on the Avid and editorial. Today's date. So there's a token for the year, the month, the date, and the shot name. And since the shot name includes the project nickname, the shot name itself, and the version name, it's all embedded in there. And there's no open clips that get created. So I'll export these two shots for editorial. And it goes through two steps. The first one it does is it pre-renders the shots. I needed to rename these differently. Sometimes I get this. I think I've been kind of sloppy with the workflow, but the name here will get the version number. I really rename these, right? Rename shot with the source version. Maybe it's the wrong token. New version name. Source version name. There we go. Rename the shot. Sorry. Delete. Just rename those, and it pre-renders the burn-in metadata because it needs to render those. And that should, oh, it didn't. Of course, in the demo, it didn't work.
It's a live show. It's a live show. But yeah, you can add in the export, you can add the token to the file name dialog there to include the source version name.
And it does do that. So it's a way of getting it. But basically, and then you send that off to editorial. But that's the sequence export instead of the publish. Is you'll take a sequence of shots and you'll be able to export them for when you have to do a bunch of shots for outsourcing, or if you need some stuff rotoscoped. It's a great way to get stuff out that way.
Anybody who's ever selected all the things that had to go to outsourcing from the timeline and then pressed M to match them and then put them in a reel and then splice the reel together and then and so on and so on and so on can see the instant benefit of doing it this way because it's all just done for you. It's wonderful.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, man. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. We all appreciate it. Thanks for coming on and showing this today. And I can just tell from the enthusiasm I'm getting in the chat, especially from Jeff, that Jeff and I are going to try this again like on Monday, tomorrow when we get into work, for our next job. This is awesome.
Great.
Thank you so much for coming on. Josh is going to join us over in the patrons chat in a few minutes, but I'm going to transition to a little thing we call giving stuff away on Logik Live. I've got everybody's name here in the Wheel of Fun, or Wheel of Names, excuse me, which is sponsored by Wix today. And the first thing we're going to give away is a Logik water bottle, because staying hydrated is important, especially in these unprecedented times. Congratulations, Chadi. And the only thing better than feeling good is looking good. We all know that that's the truth, so we're going to give away a Logik TV t-shirt. And that's going to Brian Bailey, who needs no help in looking good, my friend. Congratulations, Brian. And speaking of looking your best, I've got a 1-year subscription to optics from our friends at Boris Effects. Make your images look their absolute best with optics from Boris Effects. Ooh, let me send that to Brian. I think he's going to want my record of it too. And that's going to Darina. Congratulations, Darina. Love it. All right, my friends, let's wrap this up. and talk about what's coming up next week on Logic Live. We're going to get together. We're rescheduling the Discord chat on feature requests for next Saturday. That's Saturday, March 20th at 2 p.m. on the Logic Discord server. We're calling it the BYOB Flame Chat. Bring your own bottle of whatever it is you'd like to drink. Your wish lists and feature requests. There's a great thread on the forum right now called Things That Flame Should Have But Does Not. And we're going to kind of have the spirit of that thread in our little conversation. Jeff's going to help me out. We're going to have the Flame feedback portal open. So anybody who has a feature request or anything they'd love to see in Flame, we'll see if there is a feature request available. If there is, we'll give everybody the link so they can upvote it. And if not, we'll create one for you right there. That's going to be next Saturday, the 20th. And then, hey, there's a transition for you. On the following Saturday, March 26th, we are switching from Sunday to Saturday for these next 2 weeks. At 2 p.m., we're going to do that different ways to organize in Flame. Like Josh said earlier, everybody has their own way of organizing things, and we all learn. There's volumes to learn from seeing how other people organize things. Everybody thinks that theirs is perfect, and it always is. But when you see how someone else works, there's always something where you go, ooh, that's great. I'm going to add that to I'm going to start doing that. So we're going to start doing that. We're going to take a look at that, rather, on the 26th. Tim Farrell has already signed up to come on and present. If anybody else would like to be a part of that fun, please give me a shout. And then we're back to Sundays on Sunday, April the 10th. We're going to do a What's Everybody Working On? We did that last year. We did it on Zoom, and it was a great way for everybody to just kind of get together and kind of talk about, in a very anonymous way, because we don't want to violate any of our confidentialities, what kind of stuff you're working on. And I believe Amanda is going to be available to help out with that too. And that's Sunday, April the 10th. If you haven't signed up for the forum, please do. Thank you very much, Randy, for everything you do to get the forum going. I want to thank everybody who's participated in the Discord chat. It's been absolutely wonderful over the last few months. This episode of Logic Live is going to be available on logic.tv with all of its friends. And last week, I released the latest episode of the Logic podcast. It was my epic interview with Andy Dill. It was one of the funniest conversations I've ever had. And so I highly encourage you, if you haven't checked out any of the Logic podcasts, subscribe to it in your podcatching app of choice and start out with episode number 25, my interview with Andy Dill. It's guaranteed not to disappoint, just like Andy and myself. Oh, speaking of Andy Dill, there's my favorite photo of him from our our Renderdome battle. Please like and subscribe our YouTube channel if you haven't already. We're up to 1.3 thousand, and that's like almost 1,300 there, guys. Subscribers. Thank you to all of our patrons on Patreon. And be sure to check out the Logic merch shop to outfit yourself in the latest in Logic wear. If you need tech support, call Jack at jack.flametech.com, jack@flametech.com.au for all of your Flame networking storage or custom build needs. If you're in the market for a Boris Effects plugin, be sure to use the logic.tv discount code to save yourself some money. Thank you to AJA, and thank you, of course, to Synesys for sponsoring Logic Live. That's going to do it, everybody. We're going to head over to the patrons chat. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you on Saturday.